He told me we couldn't afford a decent dinner, but he was secretly buying luxury condos. He said he was working late, but the second ledger showed he was building a second life. He thought my talent for risk analysis was just for company spreadsheets. He never imagined I'd use it to calculate every step of his own downfall. My name is Alara. I am 36 years old, and my world is built on data. As a senior risk analyst for Aegis Analytics, I spend my days calculating the precise probability of disaster, from market collapses to catastrophic weather events. I live by the numbers. They don't lie. My husband, Marcus, lives by charm. He is the charismatic, handsome force behind Apex Urban, arguably the most elite property development firm in Denver. He builds glass-walled luxury. I mitigate loss. We were supposed to be the perfect balance. That balance shattered on a cold Tuesday night. The air in our kitchen was thick, heavy with the smell of cheap pasta sauce, all we seemed to eat lately. Marcus stood leaning against the polished marble countertop, a countertop he had insisted on, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. He looked exhausted. "Ilara," he started, his voice hushed. "We have a problem, a serious one." I looked up from my laptop, my own spreadsheets blurring. A problem with the zoning on the Cherry Creek project. No, he wouldn't meet my eyes. The company, Apex Urban, it's failing. We're in deep trouble, honey. He explained it away with a flurry of jargon: supply chain disruptions, investor cold feet, a sudden, unforeseen market downturn. It all sounded plausible. He was the visionary, I was the calculator. But my internal alarms were humming. How deep? Marcus. He finally looked at me, his eyes wide, practicing a sincerity that felt just slightly off-key. "We're broke, Alara, literally broke." The word broke echoed in the high-ceilinged room. It didn't compute with the life surrounding us, with the custom wine fridge or the view of the mountains. But I trusted him. He was my husband. So, the cuts began. No more dinners out. The ski trip to Vail we had planned for my birthday was canceled, the deposit forfeited. Our lives shrank, confined to the four walls of the house he now claimed we were in danger of losing. I started tracking our grocery bills with the same obsessive intensity I used to track emerging market volatility. About 3 weeks into this new, suffocating reality, he dropped the real bomb. He found me in the home office, finalizing a complex report for Aegis. "I've run the numbers every way possible," he said, his voice strained. "There's only one way out, one lifeline." "What is it?" "A bridge loan." "Your trust fund." I froze. My mouse hovered over a cell. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was all I had left from my grandmother. It was my safety net. Marcus, no, that's my emergency fund. That's for a real crisis. This is the emergency." His voice cracked, the performance kicking into high gear. He knelt by my chair. "Do you want to lose this house? This is to keep the company from collapsing. Alara, to save our home, to save us." He was begging, holding my hands, the perfect picture of a desperate, devoted husband trying to save his family. I am a risk analyst. I should have seen the statistical improbability of his story, the high risk of his ask. But I am also a wife. I agreed. I made the transfer the next morning, watching the balance drain from my personal account. The money was gone, but the anxiety didn't lessen. In fact, his seemed to change. He was still stressed, still working late, but underneath the performance of exhaustion, there was a buzz. A weird, frantic excitement I couldn't identify. Then I noticed the clothes. A new silk tie, the kind that cost $400. A pair of sleek Italian leather loafers I had never seen before. "Where did those come from?" I asked, pointing to the shoes by the door. "Oh, this—" He waved it off, not looking up from his phone. "It's old. Had it in the back of the closet for ages." A week later, it was a new watch. "A gift," he claimed. "From a partner. Gotta keep up appearances for the investors. Right, can't look broke, even if we are." It was a soundbite, It felt rehearsed. The real crack appeared on a Friday. I was grabbing his suit jacket to take to the dry cleaners. We couldn't afford the pickup service anymore. Naturally, my hand brushed against something heavy and cold in the breast pocket. It wasn't his usual key fob for the sensible SUV he drove. I pulled it out. It was sleek, heavy, bearing the unmistakable silver logo of a high-end luxury sports car, a model that costs well over $100,000. My blood ran cold. This wasn't old. This wasn't keeping up appearances. He walked into the room, toweling his hair from a shower. "What's that?" I held it up. The metal gleamed under the light. "What is this?" "Marcus." He didn't flinch. He laughed, a short, sharp sound that didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, that. Must be from the valet at the investor meeting. A client must have left it in his pocket when he gave me his coat. Crazy. Right. I'll have to return it." He plucked it from my hand, his fingers brushing mine, casual and dismissive. He slipped it into his desk drawer. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the silence. The numbers in my head finally, terribly, refusing to add up. After the incident with the key, Marcus's work hours seemed to double. He was suddenly never home for dinner, which now consisted of me eating leftovers alone at the kitchen island. He started working late every single night, claiming he was personally wading through mountains of paperwork, trying to restructure Apex Urban's debts before they were forced into receivership. He'd come home well after midnight, smelling faintly of expensive whiskey, a habit he claimed helped him schmooze the creditors. A few days later, a sleek, new high-end laptop appeared on his desk in the home office, along with a heavy-duty external hard drive. They were top of the line, far more powerful than what he currently used. "What are these?" I asked, running my hand over the brushed aluminum case. "Just some old office equipment," he mumbled, already attaching the drive. "The IT guys were junking it, so I grabbed it. My old one was slowing me down." Old equipment. This model was barely 3 months on the market, but the most telling part was how he guarded it. He set a password immediately, and any time I entered the office while he was working, he would minimize his screens or angle the laptop away from me. He started locking the office door, something he had never done in our entire marriage. My professional instincts were now screaming. My entire job at Aegis was to find the single anomalous data point in a sea of normalcy that signals catastrophic failure, a single fraudulent claim, a tiny discrepancy in a reinsurance contract that points to massive exposure. Marcus had become an anomaly. The discrepancies started piling up. His phone, which used to be left casually on the counter, was now perpetually in his pocket, screen down. I saw it light up one evening while he was in the kitchen pouring himself another stress-relieving scotch. A call was coming in from V. He snatched the phone so fast he nearly spilled his drink. "Gotta take this," he muttered, walking out onto the patio and sliding the glass door shut behind him. I watched him through the reflection, his back to me, his shoulders hunched. He was whispering, agitated. V. I knew who that was. Victoria Vance, his partner at Apex Urban, a woman who was as ruthless in business as she was stunningly beautiful. I had always found her cold, but I'd dismissed my unease as professional jealousy. Now, I wasn't so sure. Why would a call from his partner require such secrecy that night? I waited until I heard the deep, even sound of his breathing from the master bedroom. I crept to my own laptop. I logged into our joint bank account. He was right about one thing: it was a wasteland. Our balance was just a few $100s, barely enough to cover the electric bill. He was broke, or at least, we were. But my eyes are trained to see patterns. I scrolled back, looking past the obvious, and I found it. It wasn't one large withdrawal. It was small, repetitive transfers. $500 here, $800 there, another $500. All moving to the same external account number, one I didn't recognize. The transfers were labeled vendor pay, but they were happening 3 times a week. It was just enough to look like business expenses, but too frequent and too consistent to be real. A knot tightened in my stomach. I still had the old login credentials I'd helped him create for the Apex Urban Employee Portal. I had designed the back-end risk assessment module for him years ago. I navigated to the login page and typed in my credentials. Access denied, password incorrect. He had changed it. He had locked me out of the system I helped him build. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place 2 days later. Marcus found me making coffee, a strained, almost giddy smile on his face. It looked terrifyingly false. "Honey, you won't believe this," he said, grabbing my shoulders. "I think I found him. The White Knight." "What are you talking about?" "A mystery investor, a Swiss consortium. They're interested in a full buyout, a massive capital injection. It would save everything." A surge of hope, sharp and painful, shot through me. "Marcus, that's amazing. When do you meet? That's the catch." He ran his hand through his hair again. The picture of a stressed executive. "It has to be now. It's a last-minute, desperate trip. I have to fly to Switzerland. Tonight. Tonight. I know. It's crazy. But this guy could save us. Ilara, he could save our home." He paused, then added, "Victoria's coming too. Of course. She handles the international contracts." My insides went cold again. "Victoria, to Switzerland?" "Yes, but don't worry," he added quickly, a little too quickly. "We're flying on separate flights, booking different hotels. We have to save costs. Remember, we're still broke until this deal is signed. It's all on separate bare-bones budgets." He kissed me, a fast, dry peck on the cheek. "This is it, Ilara. Wish me luck." I watched him pack, the new laptop and the secure external hard drive going into his sleek carry-on, and as he walked out the door, the risk analyst in my head finally overrode the wife. He wasn't going to save his company. He was running. Marcus had been gone for exactly 1 hour. The house was finally, completely silent, a vacuum waiting to be filled. My suspicion was no longer a quiet hum. It was a physical pressure behind my eyes. I am paid to see risks that hide in plain sight. My husband had become the biggest risk of my life, and I was done ignoring the data. I walked to his home office. The door was locked, just as I'd known it would be. He'd started locking it ever since the new laptop arrived, a small, guilty tick. But Marcus, for all his charms, was predictable. Years ago, when we were still happy and unpacking, I had suggested we hide a spare key for this room. "Just in case," I'd said. "We ever lock ourselves out." I went to the large, abstract painting in the hallway, a chaotic splash of blues and grays that he loved. I slid my hand behind the heavy canvas. My fingers brushed against the small, cold piece of metal taped to the wooden frame. I had the key. The lock turned with a quiet, oily click. The room was dark. His new laptop was gone. Of course, safely tucked in his carry-on, but the new external hard drive was sitting right there on the desk, plugged into the docking station, its small white indicator light pulsing like a heartbeat. I sat in his leather chair. It still felt warm. I woke the drive. A password prompt appeared immediately. Encrypted. Naturally. I am an analyst. I know that passwords are never truly random. They are anchors to the ego. I tried the obvious patterns. Apex Urban, Apex Denver, his birthday, our anniversary, the address of the building. Nothing. Access denied. Access denied. I leaned back, closing my eyes, forcing the emotional panic down, letting the professional clarity rise. I was thinking like a wife. I needed to think like a criminal. What was the variable that had changed everything? What was the center of this new, secret life? The phone calls, the whispers, V, Victoria Vance. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, their initials, Marcus and Victoria, M, V, and the year they founded Apex Urban, 5 years ago. 2020. I typed MV 2020. I hit enter. The drive unlocked. The directory opened. My heart wasn't pounding. It felt like it had stopped completely. There were only 2 folders, stark and clean. Folder 1, Apex Official. Folder 2, Apex Horizon. I clicked Apex Official first. The primary file was a master ledger. I opened it. It was the story he had told me. A sea of red ink, catastrophic losses, negative cash flow projections, failed contracts. It was a perfect, meticulous portrait of a company bleeding out, justifying the canceled vacations, the cheap pasta, the desperate need for my trust fund. I closed it, my hand steady. I clicked Apex Horizon. This folder also contained a master ledger. The file name was simply Horizon True. I opened it. The screen lit up, not with red, but with an endless, beautiful, sickening ocean of black. Profits, millions, tens of millions of dollars, secret projects I had never heard of, acquisitions, cash reserves that were growing, not shrinking. He wasn't broke. He was richer than we had ever been. I scrolled through the tabs, my mind moving faster than the data. I found the Asset Distribution tab. He wasn't just hiding profits, he was moving them. A shell corporation. Horizon Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands. Hundreds of thousands of dollars were being wired to it every month. I scrolled, following the wires, my training taking over. And then I saw it. An incoming transaction, dated 3 weeks ago. A single deposit, not from an investor, not from a project. The amount was painfully, precisely familiar. It was the exact number, down to the last cent, from my grandmother's trust fund. He hadn't used it to save the company. He hadn't used it to save our home. He had used it to fund his escape. It was just another asset to be liquidated and moved offshore. I felt a coldness spread from my chest outward, a terrifying crystalline rage. I wasn't done. I went back to the main Apex Horizon directory. There was a subfolder, Admin Travel. I clicked it. Inside were PDFs. The most recent file was labeled Swiss Confirmation. I opened it. It wasn't 2 separate economy class tickets booked to save costs. It was an itinerary for 2. First class. Marcus and Victoria, sitting side by side. And a second PDF file, stapled virtually to the first. A hotel confirmation. Not 2 cheap separate rooms. A single booking. The presidential suite at a 5-star hotel in Geneva, overlooking the lake, for 1 week. They weren't on a desperate, last-ditch trip to save his company. They were on a romantic vacation, a victory lap, paid for with my grandmother's money. I didn't cry. Tears are an inefficient response to a data breach, the shock, the betrayal. That gut punch of personal pain, it all receded, replaced by a cold, ringing clarity, the kind I get right before a major presentation on catastrophic risk. My husband wasn't just a liar and an adulterer. He was a criminal. He was committing calculated, large-scale financial fraud, and he was using my life as collateral. He didn't just deceive me. He used me. He weaponized my trust and my grandmother's legacy to fund his escape. The analyst in me took over completely. I went back to the Apex Horizon drive. The travel itinerary was damning, but it was superficial. I needed the architecture of their plan. I found a subfolder labeled Personal Correspondence. It was exactly what I feared. Emails between Marcus and Victoria, stretching back months. They weren't just planning a trip, they were planning a life. They discussed the timeline for gently letting me down. They debated how to manage my reaction when he finally asked for a divorce, how to present it as a tragic consequence of the company's failure so I wouldn't dig too deep. They even had pet names. The sheer, banal evil of it all settled in my bones. My hands were perfectly steady. My breathing was even. The wife was gone. The analyst was at work. My first protocol is always to secure the data. I grabbed a fresh, high-capacity flash drive from my desk one I used for Aegis and plugged it in. I started a complete bit-for-bit encrypted copy of the entire Apex Horizon drive. As the progress bar crawled across the screen, I opened a new document on my own secure laptop. I began to formulate a strategy. This was no longer a marriage. It was a hostile takeover, or rather, a hostile divestiture. My objective was clear, complete financial ruin and maximum legal exposure. I needed to burn Apex Horizon to the ground and ensure they couldn't escape the fire. I outlined a three-pronged attack. 1. The partner, Victoria Vance. 2. The government, the Internal Revenue Service. 3. The victims, the other, smaller investors on the Apex official ledger. I framed it as a risk exposure model. Marcus and Victoria thought they were insulated by their shell corporation. I was going to expose every vulnerability. I needed to make them turn on each other. Marcus was the primary target, but Victoria was the leverage point. She had just as much to lose. I did a quick deep dive search on her. Victoria Vance. She was married. Her husband was Dr. Julian Vance, a name that carried weight in Denver. He was a top cardiothoracic surgeon from a family with old money. A man who would not appreciate the public humiliation of a scandal. I went back to the ledgers. I searched for his name. Nothing. But then I looked at the Apex official ledger again, at the initial seed capital. It came from a blind trust. I traced the trust's registration. It wasn't registered to Marcus. It was registered to Dr. Julian Vance. He had funded them. He was the one they were both stealing from. He was the primary victim. And I was certain he knew nothing about Horizon Holdings and nothing about his wife's affair. He was the first domino. Next, I created a new, secure email address, one totally disconnected from my identity. I went to the website of the top divorce attorney in Colorado, a woman legendary for her handling of high-asset financial fraud. I sent a single message from my anonymous account. I have verifiable proof of massive, ongoing tax fraud, wire fraud, and a conspiracy to hide millions in marital assets. Need immediate consultation. I booked the first available appointment, which was for Monday morning. The hard drive finished copying. I ejected the flash drive and slipped it into the small, fireproof safe I keep in my closet. I did one last search on the Apex Horizon drive. I knew where the money was coming from. I knew where it was hiding. But where was it going? I found a new folder, MIA Acquisition. I opened it. Inside was a single 90-page PDF. It was a purchase and sale agreement. Horizon Holdings was in the final stages of acquiring a $5 million penthouse, not in Denver, in Miami. The closing was scheduled for the end of the month. I looked at the digital signatures at the bottom. Marcus, Victoria. They were building their new life on a foundation of our stolen money. I closed the laptop. The analysis was complete. It was time to execute the plan. Monday. Marcus and Victoria were in Switzerland, 5,000 miles away, 6 hours ahead. They were probably just sitting down to a long, decadent lunch, paid for with stolen money. They were celebrating. I was dismantling. I woke before the sun, my mind sharp. I sent a brief clinical email to my boss at Aegis Analytics. I was taking a personal day due to an unforeseen family emergency. It was, in a way, the absolute truth. At exactly 7 o'clock in the morning, I was the first person in line when the bank opened. I walked to the teller and calmly requested to withdraw exactly 50% of the remaining funds from our joint savings account. The amount was pathetic, less than $500. The teller looked at me with a flicker of pity as she counted out the cash. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle of severance. 10 minutes later, I was sitting with a personal banker, opening a new account under my name, and my name alone. I deposited the cash. The first firewall was built. I went home. I sat at my dining room table, not in his compromised office. I opened my own secure laptop. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, I logged into the anonymous email account. The first domino, Dr. Julian Vance. I composed the email with surgical precision. I kept it free of emotion, framing it as a professional courtesy, a notification of extreme risk. The subject line read, Financial Activities of V, and M.A. The body was short. Dr. Vance, your wife, Victoria Vance, is not only engaged in an affair with her business partner, Marcus Ashford, she is also actively conspiring with him to embezzle funds from Apex Urban, a company you provided the initial seed capital for. They are diverting millions in profits to an illegal offshore shell corporation. I have attached the true ledger of the company, Apex Horizon, as well as the fraudulent ledger, Apex Official, which they are using to deceive investors. I have also attached the wiring details for their Cayman shell, Horizon Holdings, and the reservation for their shared hotel suite in Geneva. You are being defrauded, a concerned party. I attached the files Horizon True, XLSX, Apex Official, XLSX, Horizon Holdings, Wire Details, PDF, Swiss Confirmation, PDF. I hit send, the second prong, the government. At 9 o'clock in the morning, I navigated to the IRS whistleblower program portal. This was my territory. I understood compliance. I spent the next hour meticulously filling out the report, not as a betrayed wife, but as a senior risk analyst. I detailed the conspiracy, the tax evasion, the wire fraud. I created a precise timeline, cross-referencing the emails with the illegal wire transfers. I uploaded everything, the 2 ledgers, the shell company incorporation documents, the personal correspondence folder with the emails confirming their affair and their conspiracy to hide assets. I attached the wire transfer confirmation for my stolen trust fund as Exhibit A, theft of marital and separate assets. I attached the $5 million Miami penthouse acquisition contract. I reviewed the package one last time. It was perfect, ironclad, a complete and total prosecutorial gift box. I clicked Submit. A confirmation page appeared. The bomb was armed. I leaned back, but I wasn't finished. There was one last loose end, one final nagging piece of data, the Apex Official ledger, the fake one. Marcus had used it to lie to me, but who else? I opened the file again, ignoring the fake numbers and looking at the Investors tab. It wasn't just Dr. Vance. There was a list of 24 other names, small-time investors, local Denver families, dentists, retirees, people who had probably trusted Marcus with their savings, with their retirement funds, people who now believed, thanks to this fraudulent ledger, that their money was gone, lost to a bad market. They weren't part of the conspiracy. They were just more collateral damage. I logged back into the anonymous email account. I drafted one final message, addressing it to the entire list of minor investors. This one was simpler. No explanation, no emotion, just the truth. I attached one file, Horizon True, XLSX. The body of the email contained only 7 words. You were deceived. Ask Marcus and Victoria. I hit send. I closed the laptop. The traps were set. The digital bombs had been delivered. It was 9:58 in the morning. In Geneva, it was just before 4 in the afternoon. They were probably ordering another bottle of champagne. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat on my sofa, in the oppressive silence of the house he had lied about losing, and I waited. The digital triggers had been pulled. Now, I just had to wait for the detonations. It took less time than I expected. At 1:02 in the afternoon, exactly 3 hours after my final email, my phone rang. The screen displayed his name, Marcus. He was calling from his Swiss number. I let it ring 3 times, took a slow sip of tea, and then answered, pitching my voice to sound tired and a little confused. Marcus, is everything okay? Is it the investor? The voice that came through the speaker was not the smooth, charming man I married. It was a high-pitched, ragged sound I had never heard before. Ilara, are you at home? Is anything weird happening? I sat up, feigning concern. Weird. What do you mean I just got back from the grocery store? Marcus, you sound terrified. What's wrong? It's Victoria, he hissed. He was clearly in a public place, whispering and shouting at the same time. Her husband just called her, screaming his head off, freaking screaming. Ilara. He accused us of fraud. He just froze her personal accounts. All of them. He's a surgeon. He knows people at the banks. He just did it. Did you hear from him? Did he call the house? Julian. Why would Julian call me? I thought he was your friend. Marcus. What is going on? I let a note of panic enter my voice. Fraud. What is he talking about? I don't know. It's a nightmare. He knew things. Specific things. Someone tipped him off. I have to go. I have to call our bank. He hung up. Just like that. The line went dead. The first domino had just shattered. I looked at my phone. A cold, quiet satisfaction settling over me. He hadn't called his bank. He had called our bank, singular, the one he was so careful to drain. 20 minutes later, my laptop pinged with an incoming email. It was an automated message from the Department of the Treasury. Confirmation of receipt IRS whistleblower program. Your information has been received and assigned case number. The second bomb was now ticking, officially recognized by the federal government. My phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Marcus. It was the law firm I had contacted. My consultation, scheduled for this morning, had been with the partner herself. Ms. Ashford, this is Elena Sandoval. Her voice was crisp, all business. I've just reviewed the preliminary documents you uploaded to my secure server last night. My God. Is it enough? I asked, keeping my voice level. Enough. She laughed, a sharp, dry sound. Ms. Ashford, this isn't a smoking gun. This is a nuclear arsenal. This is the most perfectly documented case of premeditated financial fraud I have ever seen. I've already filed the emergency injunction with the court based on your evidence of dissipation of assets. As of 10 minutes ago, your husband cannot touch a single known joint asset. He cannot access any line of credit tied to your home, and I've put a temporary lien on the Apex Urban domestic accounts pending review. They are frozen. He's in Switzerland, I said. Then he's in for a very nasty surprise when he tries to pay his hotel bill, she replied. I'll see you in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. We will be filing for divorce on the grounds of catastrophic financial fraud. She hung up. As I was processing this, my phone screen lit up again. An unknown Denver number. I answered. Hello? Who is this? A man's voice demanded. I got an email, with a ledger. It says I wasn't. Is this real? Before I could answer. Another call beeped in, and another. And another. My screen filled with unknown numbers, one after another. The small investors, the dentists, the retirees. They had all received my email. The third trigger had been pulled, and the rats were scrambling. I let them all go to voicemail. I had one more call to take. The phone rang again, an unknown number, but this one had a New York area code. I picked it up. Hello. Am I speaking to a concerned party? The voice was deep, controlled, and vibrating with an icy rage. My blood ran cold. Who is this? This is Dr. Julian Vance. I'm on my way to the airport. I'm guessing you're the person who sent me that email 2 hours ago. He wasn't yelling. He was worse. He was precise. I don't know who you are, he continued, and I don't care. I just want to say thank you. You have confirmed a suspicion I've had for 6 months but couldn't prove. I am retaining a full forensic auditing team. They will meet me in Denver. I will tear that company down to the studs, and I will find every last dollar they stole from me. You just saved me millions, whoever you are. Good job. He hung up. The storm was no longer coming. It had arrived, and Marcus and Victoria were standing in the dead center of it, an ocean away, with no money and nowhere to run. The panic on his end was immediate, but the real consequences moved faster. Marcus and Victoria, realizing their Swiss white knight was a fantasy and that their financial world was imploding back home, did the only thing they could, they ran. They must have thrown their clothes into their expensive luggage, abandoned the 5-star suite, and raced to the Geneva airport to catch the first flight back to Denver. That's where the next firewall, the one my lawyer and Dr. Vance had built, was waiting for them. My phone rang again. It was only 6 hours after the first call. This time, his voice wasn't just panicked, it was thin, reedy, and breaking. Ilara, please, pick up. I waited a beat. I'm here, Marcus. What's going on now? Something is wrong. Something is terribly, terribly wrong. He was almost weeping. We're at the airport. The company cards. They're declined. All of them. The platinum, the black card. Declined. Victoria's are too. We tried to buy tickets, and they don't work. Declined, I said, infusing my voice with a delicate false worry. That's awful. Maybe it's a fraud alert you're in a foreign country. No, it's not an alert, he shrieked, and I could hear the echoing announcements of the airport terminal behind him. The bank said the account is frozen by a creditor. Dr. Vance, Julian. He must have done it. He's trying to ruin us. My God, Marcus, that's horrible. Then, the pivot. The voice I had heard beg for my trust fund just weeks ago returned, but this time it was stripped of all its charm. It was the raw, ugly sound of pure desperation. Ilara, listen to me. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. I need to get home. Victoria is useless. She's just sitting here crying. I need you to send me some money, just enough for a ticket, just a coach ticket to get home. You have to. Please, Ilara, help me. I let the silence stretch. I pictured him there, under the bright, sterile airport lights, his handsome face collapsing into a mask of fear. Money, I finally said, my voice quiet, almost curious. Marcus, what money are you talking about? What do you mean? What money? He snapped, the desperation curdling into anger. Any money, your savings. The emergency fund. But Marcus, I said, and my voice was like ice. You told me we were broke. You told me there was nothing left. I don't have anything. I gave it all to you. Remember, to save the company, to save our home. There is no money. There was a long, terrible silence on the line. I could hear his breathing, sharp and ragged. He was processing. The panic was being replaced by a much colder, much more terrifying realization. He was connecting the dots. Dr. Vance's call, the frozen accounts, my refusal. Don't play stupid games, Ilara, he shouted, and I heard Victoria in the background. A faint, Marcus, who are you talking to? I know you have your own savings, I know you do. Just send the damn money. You're right, I do, I said calmly. And my lawyer, the one I retained this morning, has already made sure that it's in an account that you will never, ever be able to touch. The silence that followed was absolute. I could feel the thought land in his brain, 5,000 miles away, the full, catastrophic weight of it. My lawyer, he whispered, and then, so quiet I could barely hear it. It was you. You did this. I stood up from the sofa and walked to the window, looking out at the Denver skyline. The sun was beginning to set. I just gave everyone the correct ledger. Marcus, I said, my voice clear and final. The Horizon one, the one you and Victoria have been using for your new life. I paused, then added, You said you were going to save costs on the flight. It looks like you'll get to after all. Have a safe trip home. I pressed the end call button, cutting off the choked sound he was making. The call didn't come again. I learned later, through the court documents, that they had been stranded in that airport for nearly 24 hours. After being declined by every card they owned, they'd had to make a humiliating call to the U.S. consulate. They were issued a bare-bones emergency loan for 2 last-minute, one-way tickets. In coach, in middle seats, rows apart, flying back to the inferno I had built for them. He arrived a day later. I was sitting at our polished marble dining table, the one he had picked out, the one that represented the life he was so willing to discard. I had changed the locks. He'd had to ring the bell, and I'd let him in remotely from my phone, making him wait on his own doorstep for a full minute. He stumbled in, still wearing the wrinkled, expensive clothes he had left in. He was unshaven, his hair was matted, and he looked smaller, diminished. The charm had been stripped away, leaving only the weak, hollow man underneath. He was alone. Victoria, clearly, had been smart enough to go straight to her own legal team. He saw me sitting at the table and his face contorted with a mix of rage and relief. "Ilara," he croaked, You have to listen to me. It's all a misunderstanding. Vance is insane." He stopped. He had only just seen that I was not alone. 2 men in dark, unremarkable suits were sitting with me, cups of coffee untouched in front of them. They didn't look like lawyers. They looked like the government. Marcus froze, one hand still on the handle of his carry-on bag. His eyes darted from me to the men, and in that instant, I saw the full spectrum of his panic. He had been running from this moment, and he had just run straight into it. I didn't stand up. I looked at him, my expression neutral, my hands resting calmly on the table. "Marcus," I said, my voice cutting through the silence, perfectly level. "You're just in time. These gentlemen are from the Internal Revenue Service. They have a few questions for you, specifically about Apex Horizon Ledger, XLSX." The blood drained from his face. He looked at me, then at the agents, his mind racing, searching for an escape route, a new lie. He found one. "Her," he shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me, and then not at me, at an invisible target. "No, not her. Victoria. It was Victoria. She set me up. I was afraid of her. She controlled all the finances, all the offshore accounts. She handled the books. I didn't know what she was doing. I was trying to fix it. She did this. She lied to both of us. It was a pathetic, desperate performance. One of the agents, a quiet man with tired eyes, didn't even look up from the file he had open on the table. "That's odd. Mr. Ashford," he said, his voice flat. "Because we have a very clear email chain, originating from your personal account, specifically directing Ms. Vance on the exact method for transferring your wife's trust fund into the Horizon Holdings account. Your instructions were, and I quote, 'Bury this deep. She'll never look here.'" Marcus stared, his mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. The last lie had evaporated. He had been so utterly, completely exposed. His eyes found mine. The anger was gone. The bravado was gone. All that was left was the terrified, begging child he had always been. "Ilara," he whispered, "please, you're my wife. You're my wife. You have to help me. You have to tell them. Tell them I'm a good man. Tell them it was a mistake. Please, Ilara, don't let them do this." I finally stood up, the chair scraping quietly against the floor. I looked at the man I had loved, the man who had told me we were too poor to eat dinner while he was buying $1,000,000 condos with his mistress. "You were right. Marcus," I said, and his face flickered with a desperate, stupid hope. Yes, I was. About what?" "We are broke," I said, completely, because at 10 o'clock this morning, the IRS, acting on the evidence I provided, seized every single asset associated with Apex Urban, Horizon Holdings, and all known affiliated accounts, including the Miami penthouse. I walked around the table until I was standing directly in front of him. He flinched, as if I might hit him. "You're a property developer, Marcus," I said, my voice low and clear. "You, of all people, should know that the foundation is the most important part of any structure, and you built our entire life on a lie. A foundation like that. It was never going to hold." He just stared at me, his eyes dead. He had nothing left. The quiet agent closed his file. "Mr. Ashford," he said, standing up. "We need you to come with us. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit tax evasion, wire fraud, and money laundering." They didn't put him in handcuffs, not in the house. They were professional. They simply flanked him. "Please bring your coat," the agent said. Marcus didn't move. He just looked at me, a hollow man in a house that was no longer his. One of the agents gently, firmly, placed a hand on his back. "This way, sir." They walked him out the front door, the one I had let him in. I watched them guide him into the back of an unremarkable black sedan. He was arrested in his own dining room on a beautiful, clear Denver morning in the house he tried to steal. The arrest was only the first shockwave, the case of United States v. Ashford and Vance became the biggest financial scandal Denver had seen in a decade. The media seized on the narrative the charismatic, high-flying developer and his glamorous partner, brought down by a complex web of lies and a second set of books. I remained anonymous in the press, referred to only as the whistleblower, a role my lawyer, Elena, carefully cultivated to protect me. The federal case was only one front. The aftermath of my emails had spawned 2 other massive legal battles. The group of 24 smaller investors, the dentists and retirees Marcus had swindled, had pooled their resources. They filed a massive class action civil lawsuit against Marcus, Victoria, and the now-defunct shell of Apex Urban, seeking millions in punitive damages for their stolen savings. Simultaneously, Dr. Julian Vance, free from his marriage, moved with the precision of a surgeon. He filed his own suit, not just for fraud, but to reclaim his entire multi-million-dollar seed investment, arguing that the company had been founded on a criminal conspiracy from day one. The legal sharks were circling, and there was blood in the water. My life became a series of sterile conference rooms. Because I had identified the movement of my trust fund across state lines and into the Cayman shell, the FBI had joined the investigation, citing wire fraud. I met with IRS agents and FBI agents weekly. I was no longer the betrayed wife. I was their primary asset. I walked them through the ledgers, my tone as clinical as if I were back at Aegis Analytics. I cross-referenced the fraudulent Apex official books with the Horizon True ledger, showing them exactly how he moved the money, when he did it, and where it went. The real drama, however, was happening between the 2 co-conspirators. Marcus, true to his nature, was trying to charm his way out of a federal indictment. His entire defense strategy, I learned through Elena, was to paint Victoria as the mastermind. He was arguing that he was a simple developer, a visionary, and that she, the ruthless numbers woman, had handled all the complex offshore accounts and manipulated him. He had even manufactured evidence. This was his final, coldest betrayal. As Victoria's own legal team began discovery, they unearthed a false paper trail Marcus had been secretly building for the last year. He had created spoofed emails and forged digital authorizations to make it appear that Victoria was the sole signatory and controller of Horizon Holdings. He had been planning, eventually, to cut her out, take all the money, and leave her to take the fall. He never intended to share their Miami penthouse. He intended for her to be the only one who went to prison. When Victoria realized this, the last shred of her loyalty evaporated. She had destroyed her marriage and her reputation for a man who was actively setting her up for a decade-long prison sentence. She didn't just get angry. She became an executioner. She flipped. She instructed her lawyers to offer the U.S. Attorney's Office a deal. And she had things I never could have found. She had the audio recordings. She had secretly taped dozens of their phone calls and meetings. She handed over recordings of Marcus laughing about how stupid I was, how he'd convinced me to give him my grandmother's money. She had tapes of him explicitly detailing the plan to frame her if anything ever went wrong. And she had more ledgers. She revealed a third set of domestic slush accounts, ones hidden under false corporate names that even my forensic analysis had missed, where Marcus was hiding cash for his personal use. She gave them everything. With Victoria's testimony, the federal case against Marcus became an ironclad, airtight tomb. My own role was solidified as the primary whistleblower who had provided the initial, crucial evidence. I was granted full immunity from any and all prosecution. Elena, my attorney, leveraged my cooperation into a deal with the prosecutors. Before the government seized and auctioned the remaining assets, one payment was to be made first. The funds from the sale of the Miami penthouse, which the FBI had seized, were to be wired directly to my new private bank account. My grandmother's trust fund was to be returned, in full, before any other creditors or victims were paid a single dime. 6 months later, I was sitting in the front row of a federal courtroom. The air was heavy, smelling of old wood and procedural justice. I sat directly behind the prosecution table, my back straight. I hadn't come to gloat. I wasn't there to watch him burn. Not really. I was there to close the file. My job is risk analysis, and I had come to see the final catastrophic loss scenario play out, to close this account and move on. Victoria Vance was sentenced first. She had been crying since she entered the room, her beauty replaced by a blotchy, desperate fear. Her high-priced lawyer detailed her substantial and invaluable cooperation with the U.S. Attorney's Office. She had given them the audio tapes. She had given them the third set of hidden ledgers. Because of her testimony, the judge was lenient. He sentenced her to 3 years of probation, massive restitution fines that would bankrupt her, and 5,000 hours of community service. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing with the relief of a woman who had been staring at a decade in prison and had, at the last second, dodged the bullet. Then, it was Marcus's turn. He stood up, but he was barely there. The suit he wore hung loosely on his frame, a cheap rental from his court-appointed defender, his assets having been frozen for months. He had nothing. He had no defense. He had been betrayed by his mistress and exposed by his wife. He had pled guilty to all counts. The judge looked down at him, his voice devoid of sympathy. "Mr. Ashford, you have been convicted on multiple counts of wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. You didn't just defraud investors in the United States government. You systematically betrayed every single person who placed their trust in you, including your own wife, whose inheritance you stole to fund this criminal fantasy." Marcus stared at the floor. His shoulders slumped. The charm was gone. The charisma was gone. There was just a hollow shell. Considering the calculated, malicious, and predatory nature of these crimes, the judge continued, "This court sentences you, Marcus Ashford, to 12 years in a federal penitentiary." 12 years. The number echoed in the silent room. A U.S. Marshall moved to stand behind him as they put the handcuffs on him. His head lifted. He turned, his eyes searching the gallery until they found me. He looked right at me. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His eyes, the eyes that had lied to me about being broke, the eyes that had charmed me, the eyes that had begged for my trust fund, held nothing but the cold, black acknowledgement of his complete and total failure. He knew I had done this. He knew I had won. I met his gaze, holding it steady for 1 second, 2, 3. Then, I broke it. I stood up. My heels made a sharp, clean sound on the marble floor as I turned. I didn't look back at him. I didn't look at Victoria. I walked out of the double doors of the courtroom into the bright hallway, and I did not once, look back. I walked down the long corridor and pushed through the heavy bronze doors, out onto the courthouse steps. The cold, sharp Denver air hit my face, and it felt like the first clean breath I had taken in years. I had survived. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, my hand steady. An email had just arrived. It was from Elena, my lawyer. The subject line IRS confirmation. I opened it. The message was 5 words long. "First whistleblower payment approved. Congratulations." I looked down at the message, then up at the bright, cloudless sky. My grandmother's money was back. And then some. I had my life back. I took a deep, deep breath of the free, cold air. I put my phone back in my pocket, and I walked down the steps into my new start. Thank you all so much for listening to this story. I am so curious where everyone is listening from. Please let me know in the comments. I'd love to chat and hear all your thoughts on Marcus and Victoria. If you loved this, please be sure to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories. Don't forget to like this video and hit that hype button so this story can be heard by more people who need it.